Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
Everybody in America seems to be at war, externally, internally. It's a tragic reality, ladies and gentlemen. Sheriff Richard Mack with me. He wrote a book, The Democrat Murder of America. We'll talk about that, but we have some incredible guests as well. They're from morelikeus.org. What does that mean? Who are they? What are they doing? I love it all. We'll get to it in seconds. Sheriff, welcome.
Sam, it's great to be with you this beautiful Tuesday morning.
All right, this book, The Democrat Murder of America, is a very provocative title, no doubt. Demagoguery in the First Degree, written by two authors, Daniel Perkins and Sheriff Richard Mack. I know the title is deliberately provocative, but really the goal is to bring people together. We just issued a press release about the book. Do you have a quick quote for us, sir?
Just for the sake of our guests, I'll keep it short, but in the book it does an analogy, maybe even a metaphor, but it does an analogy about black ants and red ants being put together. You put 100 ants of each color in a jar, and nothing happens. They get along fine. But when somebody else shakes the jar, all the ants kill each other until they're completely, all of them are dead. And we pretty much surmise that that is the political atmosphere in America today. But the question remains, and the book mostly answers it, maybe not entirely, mostly answers the question, who is shaking the jar in America today? And I think it's vital that we come to that conclusion.
And many people could be pointed to for shaking the jar. So let's talk to the folks at morelikeus.org. He's the executive director. His name is James Coan. Welcome, sir. Tell us a little bit about how the organization got started, will you?
Yeah, so sure. 2016 election, felt my country seems to be tearing itself apart. What's wrong? What can I do about it? And that launched this interest that led me to Braver Angels, where we met as a volunteer. And there's a lot of work showing these misperceptions, this sense that those across the political spectrum are more different, more threatening than, at least when we're talking about the general public, they often are. And ultimately, I decided if no one else was going to take this research that shows actually we do share more than often portrayed, then let's just start an organization. And so I got connected with Ann and Dane, who's also in the Mountain West in Denver, and we started More Like Us.
You three started it together. More Like Us really is a reference to, you know what? We, the children of God, or we, the people on the earth, are more like each other, far more than we have differences. And that somehow gets lost in the mix, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, right. Things that sell, right, tends to be, tends to show division, right? If it bleeds, it leads. But when we look at actual information about the American public, right, we have more common ground. There are more similarities than often portrayed and believed.
What made you guys decide, hey, we got to go to college campuses? Because it's one thing to say, hey, we got to work on America, but college campuses, I believe, is a real place where change can happen. Not only our generation, but generations to come, right?
Yeah, so we had to try various sectors, but for us, college campuses are just the best option. We deal a lot with messaging, and college campuses are pretty unique places where even flyers and buttons and stickers can have impact as students walk around a physical campus. There can be Instagram pages targeted to a given campus. And then, echo chambers are usually bad things, but in this case, there can be somewhat like positive echo chambers, right? They're coaches, administrators, professors, student government leaders, star athletes, or all these people can repeat messages and really enforce reinforce messages that resonate with students. And this just doesn't really occur pretty much anywhere else in society. So it's very powerful.
MoreLikeUs.org, the website. We've also got Ann Schockett with us. She is the co-chair. Welcome, Ann.
Such a pleasure to be here. What a wonderful show you have. And I appreciate the honor of joining you.
So Sheriff Mack's book talks about you put these red and, ants in a jar and black ants and, they just coexist fine. But when you shake the jar, then they fight each other to death. And it's an analogy to highlight kind of what's happening in America. It seems like people are shaking the jar, Ann.
It seems like a lot of jars are being shaken. Absolutely. And from here, right on our land and throughout the entire world, this is not something that's endemic to us, unfortunately. So, yes, what we need to do is go back, take a deep breath. And the reason why I'm so thrilled to be part of More Like Us is because we are working with the future leaders of this country and showing them how to speak with each other within the aisle, within the side of the aisle, and also across the aisle. It's a fabulous organization, and it's already doing a lot of good. I believe that if you reach one person, you reach the universe. And so we are reaching many universes right now, Sam.
Excellent. James, did you guys get your kind of idea from this from Braver Angels, or how did that happen?
No, so Braver Angels helps, but a lot of this comes from work from other organizations and academia. So More in Common is an organization that came up with the term perception gap a little bit before the pandemic, showing that Americans have these distortions of each other across the political spectrum. And there's a lot of research. There's a cool project called Strengthening Democracy Challenge that crowdsourced a bunch of short interventions, and some of the ones that worked the best directly corrected misperceptions. So we said, hey, the research seems strong, and if no one else is going to run with this data and share it with others, then I guess it's going to be us.
I love it. Sheriff Richard Mack, More Like Us, focuses on spreading memorable, repeatable, and decision-making thoughts on campus. You know what? Why do you ask college campuses need this? Because we got to correct misperceptions. We got to communicate memorable skills. It's one thing to label the other guy. It's another thing to set that aside and go, wait a minute, I don't want to have preconceived conception or misconceptions. And I want to learn to communicate what I really feel. You know what? I might not like your ideas, but that doesn't mean I hate you as a person. And so they're really working to try to provide research and education and then hold workshops, etc. Sheriff.
Yeah, in fact, when I was at the Freedom Fest just recently, there was a group of young people. In fact, that's part of their name. I can't remember their name exactly, but it's Young Students for America or something like that. And they've actually asked me to be part of their tours into the campuses of this country. And so it looks like there's a lot of people, a lot of different groups, and I'm really proud that Ann and James are part of this. It looks like I'm going to be a part of it as well, and that's something I've always wanted to do because I really believe that's the grassroots area for saving our country. Because these students now going into colleges and universities have been indoctrinated by our public schools in things that just aren't true. And the sanctity of life would be one of those. Another would be, what form of government do we have? Are we really a democracy? Were we ever meant to be a democracy? And how many college students actually know the answer to that?
It's an honest, fair question. And how do we get into the campuses then and start with real truths?
I'm so glad you asked that. By the way, I have to preface what I'm about to say. Okay, and after 45 years being involved in activism, as the good sheriff just said, and business, government, civics, politics, first of all, I have to say that we are a democracy, but we are a constitutional republic. And when you go by the rule of law and follow that rule of law, you have to understand the structure of this country. And this is so important to be able to base anything we do on. So the first thing is we have to battle the inundation of messaging from many, many different sources, social media, broadcast media, the professors on campus, or whatever it happens to be with these students, and be able to let them know through our incredible body of researchers that we have on More Like Us. And that's one of the things that really does distinguish us as well, that basically they are not alone in their thinking, or that many people who may perceive as being on the other side or the wrong side, however you want to put it, basically agree with them on many, many points. So you have to find that common bond, and that way you can move forward.
James, the goal is to motivate civil discourse, right?
Correct.
I'm not hearing.
Tell me about that more. How do we do that when right now it's such a poison atmosphere on college campuses, right? I mean, it gets to where a conservative wants to speak and they shut them down before they can even speak, or et cetera, right?
That's what it seems like, right? This is the distinction that we play with, right? Perception
Sure.
and reality. And yes, I mean, we don't want to minimize inappropriately the threats out there and the concerns that students have, but they're also often overblown. So when we talk about motivation, we mean about reducing hesitancy. There's all sorts of ideas that students have about each other and how awkward conversations are going to be, and the social consequences of speaking that are often overly negative. And then also there can be enticements. There can be people wanting to do this, right? Often these conversations are described as very difficult and uncomfortable. And like, if you grit your teeth hard enough, like maybe you can push through this and you are an amazing person if you can do this. But if you actually look at the research on students who talk to each other about political topics, a large majority of them enjoy it. And that's the kind of messaging that we have. Like, in many cases, this can be quite fun and enlightening, and right, that people don't have to have this amazing internal fortitude in order to withstand these horrendous situations, that often it works out better than people expect. And we want to highlight that this is the case, right? Again, we're not trying to be overly positive. We're not trying to say everything is going to be wonderful and it's going to be fun all the time.
Yeah, you're not in the Lego movie.
It's often better than people imagine.
Sheriff Mack, what do you think of this, though? To me, a lot of this really comes down to trying to get past the labels and realizing that the other guy, whether we agree or disagree, is a person, and they really have the same wants and dreams and hopes as you do, Sheriff.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Sam. You already know that I do. And, I really actually find it very productive to sit down with people from different viewpoints and actually open it up for discussion. But I think the bottom line is that we have to begin with one agreement, that there is a foundation on which we are trying to base our arguments. And that foundation in America is the United States Constitution. And if you don't know the Constitution, then you're going to be, and you're ignorant of the Constitution, or that you're intentionally trying to subvert it, as it appears that the Democrat Party is doing today, it's really going to have I will have a hard time having any real legitimate discussion with the other side. I'm willing to discuss abortion. I'm willing to discuss the economy. I'm willing to discuss foreign affairs. But the foundation, we have to agree, is that we do have laws that we established in the beginning, and that this is the law of the land, and that it is supreme. And so there has to be some sort of foundation that we agree on when we start the conversation.
The point is there's got to be at least like-minded terms and a framework for understanding. And you referred to the law. Do you want to pick up on this one?
Absolutely, without a doubt. The good sheriff and I, as well as James and Jane and I, absolutely agree on this. You need to have an appreciation, first of all, the fact that we are lucky enough to have the freedom to share opinions civilly, and basically that there is a structure to this country. And if you do want to change the structure, that is in place as well. We have the ability to do that. But we cannot take it upon ourselves to decide one day, I don't like the way this is, I'm just not going to adhere. So I definitely agree with him.
James, it's one thing to do a bunch of research. It's another to bring that research to campuses and share that with young people. And then it's another to then stimulate conversation based on that research. I know you guys have started to do that on several campuses across the country. Give us kind of a summary. How's it going? How's it working out?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I think it's going well. There's a lot of interest, and so there are many. Right? It can often be this sense that colleges are just these really toxic environments, and in some cases, right, there's at least a kernel of truth there. But there's a lot of dialogue initiatives on campus, and we're helping to enhance those. Our biggest project is at Michigan State. It's a social norms marketing campaign. Sort of entertaining. This has historically been used for high-risk drinking. Students who think that their classmates drink more than they do. Now, we have a survey with a center on that campus that shows that students overestimate the hostility that they're going to face and getting chastised for their opinions, and underestimate the curiosity of their classmates. And I think there's a great deal of openness to this, right? It makes sense to students, this kind of messaging, but it's also something that they don't tend to hear. And so it resonates, and it also has this uniqueness that makes it stickier than a lot of other messages out there.
So let me ask this. If everybody's kind of so paranoid that it's going to be worse than it is, and I hear this pattern over and over, Braver Angels highlights this, you guys are highlighting this, I've seen this, where everybody's so paranoid that it's going to go south and they're going to be attacked or ridiculed or mocked, or where do you think this super fear, whatever you want to call it, is coming from? If it's not reality in the marketplace of society, if you will, what's driving that? Does the media create that? Does the hostility on campus? Is it the professors? Is it the way campuses are run or the way classes are taught? What creates this supercharged kind of view that's not reality? What makes that perception so out of line, Ann?
I'm going to say yes, yes, yes. And every answering you just like that, Sam, absolutely. There is such an inundation of chaotic messaging right now that any young, impressionable student would be either confused or looking for a safe haven. And instead of getting the safe haven that lets that person explore many different avenues, it becomes more of a indoctrination as such. And they see this and they feel this is the way they have to act. It's really a shame. Plus, I have to say that not only do we have this from our own people here in this country, it is coming from influencers from across the world. And many of those have a very strong, or I should say a stranglehold on education. So basically, as I said before, yes, from many different sources. So the first thing to do is to actually get onto campus and in a very civilized way, just show people that they're not alone, show how many people in general share their views, what percentages share their views. We have an amazing resource, which I'm sure James wants to tell you more about, right on the More Like Us website, where people can actually see, the specific numbers of people or percentages that actually share their views.
There's perverse incentives, right? So, right, if it bleeds, it leads, and right, in an attention economy, right? Like how are people going to get clicks and listen, right? It's like, oh, let's get along. Boring. I want to go to sleep, right? Oh, they are a threat to me. Well, okay, I want to watch. And right. So there's an incentive to highlight differences. Unfortunately, I think our field, which could push back on this, has sometimes accentuated these differences, right? The term polarization, for instance, suggests that we're starting from a position of two completely distinct poles, of which there's almost no common ground. So, like, we don't use that term because we think it's counterproductive. What Ann was talking about is something that we've run with all sides. It's called Similarity Hub, and we've aggregated about 700 individual survey data points showing overlap across the political spectrum. So, right, there can be overlaps in terms of goals, and then also on lots of different policy issues on about 20 different topics covering all the hot button issues. So, yes, there is a starting point where there's common ground, essentially wherever we look.
And when we talk about like us, that's kind of the point, right?
You got it, right. We named it for a reason. Note that we use the word more like us, right? We're not just saying just like us or the exact same. We note that there are differences. We want to be honest and accurate, but thankfully we are more like us than often portrayed.
And those differences, though, while we understand them, that's okay. That doesn't have to be a polarization. That doesn't have to be a labeling. That doesn't have to be a hate. That doesn't have to be any of those things. We can learn to humanize one another and say, you know what? I want to learn how they got there. I want to learn what their life's experiences, who their parents are, enough about them to understand why they got there. Because when you do, you still may not agree, but at least you can say, hey, they're at least coming from this or at this from a caring position, not a hate position, or from a, etc. I did an interview at Freedom Fest with Brian Shapiro, and I tried to have a discussion with him about, the divisions in America. And I tried to say, he basically talked about Trump's the cause of it all. And I kind of said, let's rewind a little bit before that to Barack Obama. I think Barack Obama unintentionally divided on race and stuff. And Barack and Trump both had a lot of divisions. I think the division started with both of them. Well, he went off on a tangent. I tried to cycle him back to the discussion at hand. Well, I was not probably going to release the interview because I just felt like it was pretty much a fight interview. I didn't mean it to be. I tried to be kind, but he just went from topic to topic and intentionally. I believe he's a shock jock, so he did it on purpose. But then he wrote a headline for the interview. He released it, and it says this: how can a blind man be such a racist? Brian exposes host on his own show at Freedom Fest is his headline. And then so there's the interview, and then there basically is all of his people writing comments, basically just attacking me, saying, hey, how can a blind person be so blind? How can a person be so stupid and crazy? And anyway, they relentlessly attack me. And I illustrate this because I'm not attacking Brian back or his listeners. I'm merely saying, you can think bad about me all you want to, but what I'd like to do is have enough conversations to at least say, I may disagree with what you say, but I stand for your right to say it. And more importantly, maybe we can find some common ground. That's what I would hope to do. Ladies and gentlemen, when we get back, we have Sheriff Mack with me still, obviously. But then we got James Coan. He's the executive director. We got Ann Schockett with us. She's with morelikeuS.org. Check out their website. They're working on college campuses to help people work together from research and points of common ground. I'm Sam Bushman. More in seconds. God save our constitutional republic. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Sheriff Richard Mack is with me. We're having a great time on your radio and TV. We're talking to the folks morelikeuS.org. Yeah, why college campuses need to correct misperceptions. They need to learn to communicate memorative skills. They need to learn to unlock large-scale change, to not label, to not fight, to learn to get along in ways that are productive and solutions-oriented. It starts with understanding our supreme law of the land. It starts with understanding that, hey, you know what? I might not agree with what you say, but I do agree you have the right to say or think it, ladies and gentlemen. They spread memorable, repeatable content on college campuses, and their goal is to motivate civil discourse. James Coan with us. He's the executive director. We've also got Ann Schockett with us. She's the co-chair of the organization. And we're talking about so many different aspects of this. I mentioned that I have been relentlessly attacked for trying to create civil dialogue. Some people just don't want civil dialogue, folks. And so one of the keys, James, I want to ask you this. One of the keys is to really kind of say, hey, sometimes if people aren't willing to do so in a civil way, maybe we just let them go and work with other people and show them how it's done. What do you say?
Yeah, we talk about averages. So, right, there are going to be some people who will be unwilling to listen, but by and large, most people will be. And, unfortunately, the people who tend to have the most extreme views, who are the most stuck in their beliefs, are also the people who are most commonly online. So there's sometimes this conflation where it's like, oh, these people on social media are so bad, everyone can't talk to each other. No, this subset of people that are actually quite small who scream online, maybe they're not great to talk to, but that is a distortion. The vast majority of people do not post endless political things and get into all sorts of political arguments online, but right, we don't really see them. They're just like sitting in their living rooms or doing whatever, that is not political fighting. So yeah, there will be some people who might be very difficult to talk to, but by and large, people will probably enjoy or have, better conversations than they expect with the majority of people.
I think one of the ways is just to move ahead with a coalition of people that are willing to talk, and maybe at some point they come to the table. That's our hope and our prayer. Sheriff Mack, you were on a show yesterday and heard some pretty interesting things from the host. Let's focus on that for a quick second.
Well, it not just centered on Kagan and Barrett from the Supreme Court meeting before Congress to request more money, especially for security, but that it seemed that Amy Coney Barrett was actually admitting that it affected her decision making. The threats that she and her family have been getting actually affected her decision making, and that she may have changed her position to make sure that the threats were not carried out. And it was obvious that she was afraid of the threats and that they affected her. And the host that I was with actually went so far as to say she obviously has a hard time making her decisions underneath the threats that have been levied against her and her family.
And this has got to stop.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it does. But she also needs to understand that's been happening for decades. Sure. To the Supreme Court justices, and that if she can't stand the heat, she needs to get out of the kitchen. And I actually believe that President Trump needs to ask her to leave and say, look, you're gonna have a good retirement. We'll take care of you and your family financially, but I need to ask you to resign so that we can get somebody in there that will actually have the courage to stand and maybe not have such a large family that is hard to keep safe.
Yeah, Ann Schockett's a woman. Let's see what Ann has to say about this. Amy Barrett basically changing some of her positions maybe because of threats. What do you say, Ann?
Well, unfortunately, this has been the atmosphere and the landscape right now. And many, many wonderfully talented, brilliant people who should be going into public service are not doing that because of threats and because of their fear for their family, their loved ones. This is a very, very, very big thing. What should be done, in my estimation, is to talk about how to handle these situations, not to say, well, it's time for me to leave, let the next person handle the situation. It's time for us to stand up and say, this is what's happening, this is what needs to be done. It's occurring all too often, and we just heard about what happened with Amy Coney Barrett. But basically, this is happening at all levels of government. I've been involved on the local, state, and also national levels. So I see this, I hear this, and especially, Sam, from women who don't like the dirty word too often of politics. And if we look at it less as politics and more as public service, I think we will be able to deal with those situations and be there to support each other.
I like to say there's no such thing as politics or political issues. There's only moral issues, Ann.
I like that. I agree with that. Absolutely. And that's why I became involved with the National Federation of Republican Women and had the honor of moving up and becoming its president, because too often women do shy away, as well as many very, very talented men shy away from serving their local, state, and national governments because of the fear, and it's not just by women, of the fear of being harangued, of being mocked, of being actually going through what Amy Coney Barrett obviously has said that she's gone through recently, because we serve a higher mission when we do serve in public service.
Amen to that. All right, Sheriff Mack, you always ask people the same questions, and it's turning into a massive, awesome survey is what it's turning into, right?
Yeah, we don't have very long, but real quickly, I want to hear from both of you. And you go first on this one. Give a grade to President Trump for his first 18 months in office.
Would you please repeat that, Sheriff? I just got
give
swallowed.
President Trump a grade for his first 18 months in office.
Right.
I certainly support our president. Absolutely. And we have to give him the time to actually be able to complete his mission. Sometimes, people are very, very quick, Sam and Sheriff, and as well as James, to jump to conclusions. We live in a world where every single minute we are privy to what's happening all over the world. We are not privy, unfortunately, to what's happening as people are planning their goals and their missions. Okay, we are not there in the private rooms, and so basically, I am supportive of the president.
Understand? Okay. What grade would you give him? Would you give him a grade?
Yeah, I would give him a 9 out of 10, because nobody is perfect, Sam.
So 90%, would that be an A- or a B+?
A-.
Okay, James.
Yeah, so I'm going to take a very intriguing approach to this question. Right, so More Like Us does not cover this, and so I'm not actually going to answer the question. Sorry, but what I will say is that we don't deal with all issues in higher ed, and so in higher ed there's an issue of grade inflation, and so when it comes to higher ed, Trump is probably going to get an
A. Okay, and then one other thing, real quick. I know we're coming to a break. Real quick. What is the absolute worst thing going on in America today? What's the number one thing we need to solve right now, James?
Yeah, well, so, these distortions, and right, this is the core of More Like Us, right? Thinking about those across the political spectrum in these overly negative light, right? It's incorrect and it's destructive in all sorts of ways.
And
it is suffocating not only the students on college campuses, and it's also suffocating our younger folk. I mean, this is taking place throughout elementary school, middle, and high school. There's an uneasiness. It's very, very different from when I grew up. That's for sure.
Sheriff?
Thanks. Very well. Very, very well done. Thanks so much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is important to really focus on. These people are making a difference. That's what I like about some of these organizations we're interviewing nowadays with Braver Angels and morelikeuss.org, because they're really focusing on digging in to get the research. Where do we really stand and why? And then how do we share that with people so they kind of, their perceptions and reality are a lot more aligned. And then we say, okay, now that everybody's not a hater, everybody's not an enemy, that's just been somehow magnified by the media or social media, or sometimes examples of college campuses that they highlight in the media. But really, people are willing to settle down and be friends and talk. We'll talk about that more with James and Ann, right? James Coan, Ann Schockett. They're with morelikeuss.org. Right now, we'll let Richard Mack fly. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sam.
All right, there he goes, ladies and gentlemen. CSPOA.org. That's the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. When we come back, though, James and Ann continue.
Sheriff Mack, standing tall, still answering freedom's call, a badge of promise, a constitutional
Mac music, I don't have that every day on my show, but we have it on Tuesdays because Sheriff Mack joins me. And there for a time, we had the Sheriff Mack show on Tuesdays with me. And so we play this music to promote what he's doing. He's trying to bring people together in meaningful ways as well. But we're talking to James Coan, Executive Director and Ann Schockett, co-chair of morelikeus.org. More Like Us doing a phenomenal job on college campuses, bringing research to the table. And James, I want to start with you. There's a big difference between what people think reality is, so their perceptions, and then what reality really is. And we need to really teach people to focus on memorable, repeatable skills so they can understand how to communicate in ways that are effective. I think that's part of the problem right now. We resort to name calling, we resort to attacks, or I'm right, you're wrong, or, always and never, things that just trigger and marginalize. And we need to learn to communicate in memorable, productive ways and develop that skill set. And that's what you guys teach, right?
But yeah, so that's one of the things, right? So correct misperceptions. And then we actually put skill building as a type of misperception, in the sense that often there's a sense that you need to learn so many skills and it's so difficult. And right, I guess to get, we just before the break, we're talking about grades, right? If you want to get an A or A plus, then sure, it's going to take quite a bit of time. But you want to just, kind of get through a conversation reasonably, just having a few things in mind, a stop, drop, and roll type approach can be very helpful. And so, yes, I'm a huge fan of mnemonics and alliteration and easy ways to remember things. And our mnemonic at the moment is run. It's like running toward a conversation rather than away from it, or how to have a conversation run smoothly. And what run stands for is showing you're receptive, finding what unites, and using narratives. So receptive, unites, narrative, and we could unpack that, but it's really showing.
And the reason for narrative is because that personalizes the discussion. When you start to talk about a narrative, pretty soon you start to tell stories to one another. And when people hear stories and hear about your life and who you are, pretty soon it's easy to become personally involved in a way that, you know what? James is a nice guy. I thought James, well, you know what? and it changes the conversation, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And we have more mnemonics. There's a mnemonic called CAST. So, right, there's often a sense of how to humanize people, but humanization is sort of this kind of vague term. So, CAST is showing people as more complex, admirable, similar, and worthy of togetherness than often believed. And right, stories tend to bring these out, showing what unites, and that there are similarities, makes people seem less scary, and showing that people are receptive. So right, I mean, because to know that like you're open to hearing from them and change your mind based on what they're saying. And that, that this is actually a dialogue, not just like two people standing on soapboxes, like talking past each other.
Her name is Ann Schockett, but she's not all about a shock jock. She's actually trying to bring people together in a very peaceful way. I find that interesting. Speaking of, terms and acronyms, and Ann, I want to know what you think about this, and then I want you to kind of parlay that into what you think the future looks like for morelikeus.org.
Oh, absolutely. First of all, aren't we so lucky to be living in a nation that's still a shining light on the hill? Yes, nobody, as I said before, nobody or nothing is always perfect, but we're still an example of how freedom does work, and that basically we also are a beacon of hope. And as for, I can take the example of practicing the piano. When people take up an instrument, they have to do their scales over and over and over again until it becomes a part of them, until it becomes the way their fingers move, the way their head thinks. It's the same way in civility. If you keep on practicing saying thank you, excuse me, you're welcome, and the basic tenets of how to converse with other people, after a while, that becomes commonplace. And so basically what we're doing is we're taking certain concepts of, being able to approach other people, speak with other people, not just on college campuses, but in everyday life, and be able to take those basic concepts and be able to use them. Then you can basically have a conversation with just about everyone, unless a particular person has his or her ears totally closed. And what we're finding is that most people don't. Most people are curious about how other people think, especially when they go to learn on campuses of higher education learning. They're there to explore avenues. They're there to be to learn new concepts, new ideas. And so why not learn it from each other as well, not just from those people teaching them in a formal atmosphere, but those people that they're seeing walking on the pathways of the campuses, from the people that look interesting to them, but they don't know how to say hello, or they don't feel as if they have enough in common. So this brings people together. And as for the hope, I do still have hope for this country. I do still have hope for freedom. People have given their lives, Sam, to preserve that very concept. And I believe there are enough people who truly appreciate that and who are teaching that to their families.
So, James, college campuses are where you guys have decided to focus to help bring some of this education, to create this civil discourse. But I think Ann's right. It really manifests itself in the workplace, at the grocery store, at the restaurant, at the bowling alley, wherever people are, right?
Yes, and right. So, the story of More Like Us is a story of exploration of what sector works best. And we didn't know. We started with religious leaders. We looked at K-12 education. We looked at Hollywood. Right, the research is pretty, across the board. It's pretty symmetrical between Democrats and Republicans misunderstanding each other. And so, right, where can we kind of have our first foothold? And it turned out that higher ed is the best option, but we don't want to give another misperception that higher ed is the only place for this to be used. It's just the best option for us.
Well, it's a way to get to young people. It's a way to try to, in my opinion, kind of derate the hate, as a buddy of mine likes to say. It's a way to kind of back off a little bit and settle down and say, hey, let's lower the temperature and let's see if we can't, recognize each other as people that deserve respect and honor. And what have I left out that you want to mention? I can't cover everything in a 1 hour period, but about your organization, about what you guys do, how you do it, help people kind of understand what I've kind of overlooked. Anything?
It's interesting because I have worked in nonpartisan, bipartisan, and also partisan sectors, throughout the past 45 years and actually more. And upon really learning about what More Like Us was interested in accomplishing, at first I had to be sure about this. And I felt that, upon speaking with James and Dane, learning more about them as grown-ups, it just impressed upon me that this is very much needed. And this is part of the hope for the future. And as James just said, and as you said as well, Sam, it's not just on the college campuses, but this is the perfect way to reach those people who are about to become leaders or, significant participants in everyday life, and be able to show them that there is a lot in common, that there's a lot to share. And if they even don't agree with everything, someone's religion or somebody's political outlook or whatever it happens to be, particular views on particular issues, that is okay. That is all right. It's a bouncing off point. And because of that, and because of the work that we're doing, I have even more hope for the future of this country.
James, what have I overlooked?
Yeah, you covered a lot. I would just say, so how can people help, right? If we're so inspiring, I have no idea if that's the case, but if you are, how can you contribute? And say on our website, our emails are there, especially if you know any contacts at institutions of higher learning. So, right, especially any administrators, sometimes professors, just anyone who may be interested in civil discourse on any kind of higher ed campus. Well, we just won a grant to work on campuses with more right of center students who may align with some of the listeners of this show. So please feel free to reach out to us. We respond. We love to hear from people, and these contacts can really spread this message far.
And by the way, when you go to morelikeus.org, there's ways to get involved, You can see what their initiatives are and what they're working on. If you go to their page, you can learn more about the credentials for James Coan and Ann Schockett, because they have incredible credentials. I didn't really go into the details on those just because they've got a lot of credentials. They've been at this for a long time. In the organization they've put together, the three founders have really put something together in my mind that can really change the narrative and give people the skills necessary to lower the temperature in America. And that's what I'd like to see. I referred to this interview I did with this Brian Shapiro guy. And I mean, these people are attacking me relentlessly. And I think, you know what? They have every right to think what they want to think. This is America. But maybe they could consider who I am. I've been a talk show host for 30 plus years. You know what? I don't know everything, but I'm pretty grounded in the supreme law of our land, the Constitution, the rule of law. And agree or disagree with my opinions, they're well thought out and well supported. And it's something that I think people should really think about and consider. And that's really, and the reason I bring this up is not to focus on me, but to highlight, that's really what you guys are trying to do, is give people a little bit of grace. Final word to you, James, 30 seconds.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you, Sam, for having us on. It was wonderful meeting you at Braver Angels. And yes, please reach out so we can motivate civil discourse on college campuses around the country.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you,
James.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sam. This has been a very positive show, and this is what we're all about, to bring out the positivity in people, to make them learn that they have the right to feel the way they do, but they also have the obligation to learn about how other people feel as well.
Amen to that. Morelikeus.org is the website. Morelikeus.org. God save our constitutional republic.